Thank you for joining us on Let's Get Political. As always, I am Alicia Reese, your host, and today we have State Representative Spencer Roach. Can you tell us more about the gator head?
Yes, so that was a gator that I shot about 2 years ago out in Clewiston, and funny enough, I think that gator was about 12 feet long, maybe 500 pounds or so, but I had one in my sights that was actually much larger, but I missed the first shot. It was my first time using this particular rifle, and I hadn't really sighted it in yet. And I missed the first shot. And once that first shot went, all the other gators jumped off the bank and into the water, except this guy. He was the only one dumb enough to still stay on the bank. So in some ways, you can say it's a little bit of Darwin's natural selection there. So I went ahead and did the world a favor and took his IQ out of the gene pool so that we can have much smarter gators that continue to procreate in the state of Florida. And it's certainly a discussion piece because people see that and they ask about the gator, and then I can do some of my bragging rights. Say, oh, I shot that gator myself. So,
what's the gossip right now?
So that's a great question. So here we are in January of 2024. Kind of the talk of the political circles here and probably around the whole world is about the U.S. presidential election, which is just 11 months away. But the political insiders here at the Florida Capitol are already starting to speculate about the gubernatorial election that will take place in 2026, about the governor's race. As you know, Governor DeSantis at that point will have served 8 years in office, which is the constitutional limit. He can't run for another term. He's term limited. And there's a lot of speculation about who might run for governor, who may come out of nowhere to run for governor, or what that looks like, who would be the president at the time, and how that would affect the governor's race here in the state of Florida. So that's kind of the palace intrigue here in Tallahassee, is speculating and making predictions about that governor's race in 2026. So again, stay tuned, and maybe as things play out, it could be someone that we're not even thinking about right now that could potentially run and serve as Florida's next governor. So that's some interesting political speculation that people here, even though we're a full 2 years out from that election, 2 years plus, are starting to think about.
What's your favorite kind of pizza?
My favorite kind of pizza is the kind that has crust, is cooked in an oven. I do not discriminate when it comes to food. I love food. I love pizza. But if I were to pass a law about pizza, I'm telling you folks, anyone watching this right now, it should be a crime to put pineapple on pizza. The fact that you would deface a perfectly edible pizza by putting a fruit on it, you belong in jail.
If you had the chance to go into space, would you go?
Hell no. I would not go in space. My feet are going to be on the ground. If someone wants to go in space, they can wave at me from the moon or wherever they are orbiting the Earth, but I have no intent to go into space. I will stay here on terra firma.
What is the last book you've read?
So the last book I read that I absolutely could not put down was a book called The Midnight Library. I mentioned my book list earlier, and I've updated it with this book, but it's a book by a gentleman named Matt Haig. It's a fascinating book, but it tells a story of a young lady who is, I think, in her early 30s, who really is kind of a burnout at life, right? She was at one time a promising Olympic hopeful swimmer, gifted athlete. She was a very talented musician on the cusp of really breaking into the big time with her band, and she was engaged to the love of her life that she left standing at the altar. And now, as the book opens up, she's working at a music store, kind of a dead-end drudge job, and she goes home from work, and on this particular day, when the book opens, her cat is ran over by a car. And that for her is the final straw. And she decides to end her own life. And she takes some pills to end her own life. And she goes into what Catholics would call purgatory, which is an in-between state, in between life or death. And for her, for Nora, the character in the book, the in-between state is called the Midnight Library. And every book on the shelf of the library tells the story of her life had she made one different decision. So one book tells the story of what her life would have been like had she stayed with her swimming career and gone on to the Olympics. One book tells the story of her life had she continued to stay with her band once they made the big time. Another book tells the story of her life had she married the man that she left at the altar. And I won't give you any spoilers, but it's a fascinating read. And the moral of the story, the message that you'll take away is that every choice that you make in your life matters. And it's one of those books that you read and you will just come back and think about weeks, months, and years later. But I thought it was a very powerful read. If you get a chance to check it out, The Midnight Library, if you need a copy, you come to my office and I'll give you mine.
So I've noticed you have a lot of roaches around your office.
Yes, and just for anyone watching this, she's referring to our roach paraphernalia. We really don't have a roach infestation in this office. There's only one roach in this office, and you're looking at him. So yes, my last name is Roach, like the bug, and my very, very first campaign, the only negative ad that I had ran against me was attacking and making fun of my last name, which was very sophomoric. But in response to that, we kind of owned it, and we made it sort of our brand. And my slogan at the time was, remember the name Roach, Spencer Roach. That's the only roach you want in the Florida house. And it kind of took off from there. So every year, we give our colleagues what we call a session gift. Every member will give every other member a gift at the beginning of session. And for the last 3 years, we've given a gift with a roach theme. You can see our plushie here. We gave out a very unique bottle of wine made with serum extracted from the African cockroach. We have a bottle on the shelf there that I can show you. We gave a bottle of that to each member. We have our little, literally a roach clip here that we put on a lamp. But yeah, so that's it. Just owning it. Actually, here is a bottle of the roach wine. It's called El Vino de la Cucaracha. So it's quite a unique gift. If you ever get a chance to get this, it's very unique, very special. But and I'll read you the label. It says, this fine wine includes serum extracted from the Cuban cockroach, which has been found to slow human aging, enhance kinetic ability, and improve cognitive functions. Who would not want that? Because you do know that roaches have been around since the dinosaurs could survive a nuclear blast. So we are great for longevity. But yes, that's why you look around this office and you see a lot of roach paraphernalia.
Have you ever skydived or bungee jumped? And if not, would you ever?
So just like I said, I would never go into space. I would never jump out of a perfectly good airplane. And I have been bungee jumping one time, and I would probably never do it again. It scared the hell out of me. So that's not really my bag. I will be on the other end, below the ocean, doing some scuba diving. But I will leave that stuff to crazier people than I am to jump out of perfectly good airplanes.
Do you own any pets?
I don't have any pets because I travel so much, but I do have some plants, if that counts. Yeah, I like my plants. I have a lot of plants, actually. I really think that it's therapeutic for men and women to dig in the dirt. I think it lowers your blood pressure. It gets you in tune with nature. And I tell my neighbors back home that the better my yard looks, the more stressed I am, because I'm getting that stress release from working in the yard a lot. But no, I have a multitude of interesting plants that I try to grow. Some with some success, some with lesser success. But one of my favorite plants that I have all around the house are the sky vines that can just grow on anything. They're very hard to kill, and they produce this beautiful purple flower. So if you were to go into my backyard, you would see the entire fence line covered with sky vine, and I think it's added an extra 2 feet of height to the fence, and it's so big. But I love the greenery, and I think it's important for people to spend time in nature.
If you had to move out of Florida, which state would you move to?
You know, if I had to leave Florida, I think I would go somewhere, maybe in the Midwest. The drawback there would be the snow, of course, but every single person that I've met from the Midwest has just been solid. They've all had, really the best work ethic, just a sense of sort of good old-fashioned morals and values, and just hospitable. I mean, the hospitality that people from the Midwest will show you, they are just some of the best people in this country, I think. So I think, maybe I'll give the Midwest a try if I could find a way to survive the winters. But if I were going to move anywhere, again, I think I have certainly an interest in living overseas or doing some extended long-term travel whenever I finish this political gig. So that's something that really motivates and interests me, is spending a lot more time outside of the United States and really soaking up some diverse cultures.
If you were traveling internationally, where would you want to live?
So, I would say this, of all the places that I have visited internationally, I've rarely been back to the same place more than once. But there's a little town in Guatemala called Antigua, Guatemala, that I've been to 9 times now. and probably will go to again as soon as I can get away. But it's the crown jewel of Central America. It's a really small, really old colonial city. It's probably 600 years old, but it's the perfect blend between old world colonialism and new modern creature comforts and conveniences. And I'll give you an example. So it's a 10 by 10 a city block area. It's walkable. You'll see people with horses and buggies still, but you'll see some cars, old cobblestone streets, but yet you can find Wi-Fi and you can find Starbucks there and air conditioning. So it's very safe. They have their own sort of tourist police there, and they're really known. One of the things that area is known for is their Spanish language schools. So, in fact, a lot of the governments around the world will send their diplomats to there to work on their Spanish. But it's a really cool place to visit if you're ever looking to get a nice romantic getaway with your significant other. Go there, or you could even bring your kids if you wanted to go someplace outside of the country for sort of a cultural exchange and learning experience that's also safe. I brought my 10-year-old, well, he's not 10 now, but when he was 10, I brought my then 10-year-old nephew down to Guatemala with me for about 2 weeks. And it was just really, really cool experience. But yeah, check that out. But that's something that a lot of people are surprised when they say, what's one of your favorite places to visit? And I say Guatemala.
If you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who would you have dinner with?
Man, that's a tough one. Let's do alive first. If I could have dinner with anyone right now who would be the most interesting person in America, I would have to say that it would be former Congressman George Santos. I mean, looking at that guy's biography, man, he has done it all. I mean, he truly is the most interesting man in the world. I would love to have dinner with him and all of his personalities to learn more about his fascinating life and history. If I had to pick someone not living to have dinner with, I think it would be what I would consider to be the most famous and most accomplished statesman of the 20th century, with which I share a middle name. And that would be Winston Spencer Churchill, who I would argue more than any other person alive in the 20th century really saved the world from Nazism. So that would be someone that I would want to have dinner with.
What's your death row meal?
My death row meal, I would have to say, I love a good steak. So probably, a really nice cut of ribeye, cooked to medium, seared around the edges. And, I like red wine. So I might even splurge and say a really nice ribeye and a really good box of red wine.
What about a bottle?
Wine comes in bottles?